Let's now talk about sorting arrays. Sorting is a very important topic in computer science, and there are countless algorithms and methods of sorting values. And now we might actually talk about this a bit later in this course. For now, though, we are simply going to use JavaScript's built-in sort method. So let's take a look. So now let's start here with an array of strings, right? Const, and I'm giving the name owners, and that is equal. So here in this array, let's give the names of owners. For suppose giving Priya and then giving Maya, John, Sarah. Now let's log this into console.log owners dot, and now let's use the sort method. So let's give sort. Now let's see the result. Reload. Here we see that our array displayed, and also you see that it is displayed from alphabetical order. Now let's give that if this method is actually mutating the original array or not. So let's see that. Reload. Now you will see that it also is now mutated. So this sort method mutated the original array. So this is we are done with this strings. Now let's take a look at numbers. Now let's see our movements array. Console.log movements. See here we have our array. Now let's use the sort method for this. Give movements dot sort. Reload. So the result of the array is changed, and the array that is what we are expected is not like this. So you see that here all these numbers are in not in an order. So the reason is that the sort method does the sorting based on the strings. So that means that this is sounds weird, but this is just how it works by default. So basically what it does is to convert everything to strings and then it does the sorting itself. And if we look at the results as if they were, the result actually makes sense. So here the minus here is, you see, always comes first. Okay, first you have all the minuses, and then after that basically alphabetically the first string that occurs, and then afterwards you have this one, and which is this. Here you see that it displayed an array that alphabetically, which is that all the minus values are comes first. That is, in these minus values also we have the one first number, that is 1. So it is displayed here, and then the 4 that is displayed, and then the 650 that is starting with 6. So 1, 4, 6 like that, and all the minus values first displayed. And after that here you see that all the positive values that are start with 1 that is displayed, and then 2, 3, 4 and 7. So this means that if these are the strings, then it would make sense. So the result is okay, but they are not strings. So we need to fix this by passing in a compare callback function into the sort method. So here this is not working, and now let's write here movements dot sort, and we need to call this function. So and this callback function is called with the 2 arguments. So I'm simply calling those 2 arguments with the a and b. Now let's use the arrow function. So here you see that this a is the current value, and the next value, that is b. If we imagine the sort method looping over the array. However, in order to understand how to compare function works, so how this callback function here works and how we have to write it, let's just think of a and b as simply being two consecutive numbers in the array. And it does not matter which ones. So let's simply take these two, 450 and 400. So here let's just compare these two in our callback function 450 minus 400. So if we return this, then the value of A will be sorted before value B. Now in our callback function, if we return less than 0, then the value of A will be sorted before value B. And the opposite, if we return a positive value, then B will be placed before A in a sorted output array. So okay, now let's use that in practice to sort the moments array in ascending order. Let's now write here first. This is for return less than 0. So if we something return that is less than 0, so then A will be sorted before B. But on the other hand, if we return greater than 0, then B will be sorted before A. Now I hope that you have an clarity. So with this knowledge, to sort our movements array now in an ascending order. So ascending order means that we want to go from small to large numbers. So, and to make this easier to understand, let's analyze the two numbers that we have here, 450 and the minus 400. And if we want to sort these two in an ascending order, then we need to switch them. So this is A and the minus 400 is in B. So to make them in an ascending order, we need to switch them, and we want here is B and then A. So that is greater than 0. So we need to return that greater than 0, and here this is a rule that means that how to work this sort callback function. Now let's write that if A greater than B, so then return 1, or else if B greater than A, so with this condition return -1. Now let's log this into console. Let's see the result. Reload. See here we have this array in an ascending order. See, so first is minus 650 and then minus 400 and then minus 130. And also all these in ascending order, 770, 200, 450, 1300, 3000. So now it is working, and so this is the sort method keeps looping over the array and applying this callback function here until everything in an ascending order according to the rules that we have established. And so returning 1 here because this means that to switch the order, and let's write that here. Write the switch order, and this is for keep order. So this means that we will understand clearly. And so now let's come back to these examples. Let's say that A and B now 200 and 450. So in this case, we want to keep the order right. So therefore, that's the case in which we return. So that is less than 0. So that's what we have here. So let's write that A is less than B. B is greater than A. And so for that, A is less than B. Both are same. Now here we see that in the first example, that is the first situation, we have A is 200 and then B is 450. So we need to keep the same order. And so here in this, we have A is 450 and then the minus 400 is B. So we need to switch these because minus 400 we need the first, and then 450 is greater than minus 400. So that's why we need first minus 400. So we need to switch these places. So like that. And so now if we want to sort in a descending order, so that is opposite of this one. So we will simply do it exactly the same way around. So for that, let's copy this one, paste here, and all we would do have to do is to return -1. So in this case here A greater than B means -1, and then here A less than B means simply 1. So this is the opposite of ascending order. So let's take a look. So now you see that the array is in descending order. Now let's write that here. This is for ascending order and this is for descending order. Give here also these console moments. So you see now the ascending order and also the descending order. And now we also know that already A is greater than B means then A minus B would always be something positive. And the same here with the A less than B. So if A is less than B, then we know that A minus B is always the same thing negative. And the negative is exactly that what we want to return here. We know that here if A is greater than B, then A minus B would always be something positive. And so here also we know that if A is less than B, then that A minus B is always be negative. So that means that we need to return here this minus. So that is negative value. Now let's write it here in a simple way. Let's comment these all these in a simple way. So here we need to write the give arrow function and then A minus B. Now let's check the result reload. So we have the same result. So what we did here means we already know that if A is greater than B, then this value will be a positive number. So here we have returned that positive number. So it doesn't have to be exactly 1. So just something greater than 0. So now if it's the other way around, if A is less than B, then this operation will always be a negative number. So therefore something negative is returned just as the minus 1. So, but again, it can be a number. And by the way, if it returns 0 here, so in case these two values are same, then their position simply remains unchanged. Now let's do the same for this descending order. So descending order means opposite of ascending. Give B minus A. Let's reload. So with this also we have the same result. And always keep in mind that we are actually returning these values, but we don't have to write the return, because we are using an arrow function. So you see that it is still working. And this is basically most of what you need to know about sorting arrays with numbers. So if you have a mixed array like the strings and numbers together, then this is not going to work. And advise you to simply not use the sort method in these cases anyway. And that's because there is not really a point is to doing this. But anyway, now that you know how the sort method, let's go back to our application and implement it here. Now let's take a look, give the details. And so here we see that all these details, and here we have the sort. So basically this sort method sort these movements, all these movements will sort by using this sort method. So here all we need is when we click on this sort button, we have that all these values in an descending or ascending order. And so now let's just implement the sorting functionality. So where we want to give this functionality means we need to give that here in this display moments. So that is here in this function. Now here in this display moments function, what we have to do means we need to create a another argument. That is here I am giving the sort, and here I am setting this sort equal false. By default I am giving this sort value false. So now depending on this parameter, whether it is true or false, we will then order our movements or not. So sort the movements or not. So by default, I am giving here false because we do want to show the movements just in the order they appear in the array. So but then as we click that sort button, we will then call this function display movements with sort set to true. So now for that, let's create a variable const. Here I am giving movements, that is short form because we have movements here. So and also that is equal, give the conditionally sort So we say that if sort is true, then we actually want to sort the movements. So the movements that we are going to write here is that we cannot do this movements dot sort. And so with this, we will then order the actual underlying array. So the actual moments array as it is in the account object, but that's not what we want at all. So all we want is to display a sorted moments array, but we do not want to sort the original underlying data. So what we want to do here means we simply take a copy of the moments array and sort that. So let's write here slice. So with this, we will actually create a copy using the slice method and not the spread operator. So because here we are in the middle of the chain. So we want to keep going after this. So that's a lot better to simply use the method chain. So simply chain the sort method onto it. AB, and now all we need here is to compare function. Let's give here arrow function. Now remember that in the user interface, so in our application, how the movements appeared in a descending order. So however, that is because we start to display the values from the bottom to top. And so actually what to know sort this array in an ascending order, and to do that remember we do A minus B. So we already see this one, why it works and how this will work. But now if the sort is false, so that's the default value we are giving as false, then movement should simply become movements. So that means movements. Now let's give this function moves. Again, see that we have given a second parameter, which is an optimal parameter called sort. And then if sort is set to true, then the movements that we are going to use to them display them and will be sorted like this. And if it is set to false, then simply the regular movements as they are passed in will be displayed. And now all we need to do is to call the function with the sort set to true. So whenever the user clicks that sort button, then that button is, let's see the button sort. So now let's create our add event listener to button sort. Let's right here, button sort dot add event listener, and also our click and the function. And we always start by preventing the default. E dot prevent default. And then here we want to call print. So that is actually we need to call the display movements right here. Display movements. So here current account dot movements. And the second parameter is set to true. So that is the sort parameter. And so now let's take a look here. Give the details. See here we have all these movements, and now when we click on this sort button, we see that all the movements are changed. And so now, but again, if I click the button, it will now not going back to normal. So let's solve this by using a state variable called monitor. So that variable needs to be live outside of this callback function so that its value can be preserved after clicking this button. And because as you know, this function here is executed each time that we will click on this sort button. And if we define a variable here in this function, so then it would be created newly each time that way when we click on that button. So we want to preserve that sorted state. Let's write there let sorted that is equal false. So this is for throughout all the clicks, we start with the state variable. So we are giving set to false, and that's because in the beginning our array is not sorted. So sorted is false now. So if it is false, then here this should be true. That is, this should be true. So when we actually sort the array, basically here we want the opposite of sorted. So that's where our not operator comes in handy. So further give here not sorted. So we are doing the opposite of sorted. When sorted is false, then we want to sort it. So we need true here. But if it is already sorted, then we again want the opposite. So then sort should be back to false. So the only thing that's missing is to actually flip the variable. So for that, let's write here sorted equal opposite of sorted. So right, not sorted. So this is what then allows everything here to work. Otherwise, even as we would click, this sorted variable would then never change. And so with this, each time that we click, we change sorted from true to false and then false to true and so on. Now let's try this again. Click on the sort. So here see that when we click on the button, it is changing. So with this, we are done all of this. I hope that you have learned a lot in this session. So this is all about the session. See you in the next one. Thank you.